Hey everybody, Eric Schweitzer here from TheGamer, and today we are taking a look at Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, which comes out this week. I'm joined today by Zoe Osick, who is an evergreen specialist for TheGamer. Zoe has been playing Avatar alongside me, working on guides for the game. Zoe, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm stoked because I actually really like this game. Not going to bury the lead. I was really into it. But I'm a huge Avatar fan, so I think I have to reveal my bias up front. And you're pretty big on Avatar too, right?
Oh, absolutely. I love Avatar. I have really good memories of going to see the movie in 3D with my dad. So getting to play the game and actually explore the world firsthand is amazing.
Yeah, yeah. I'm on the same page. I've been a pretty staunch defender of Avatar for a long time. In the face of much adversity, it's I can't believe a movie that made $2 billion twice is hated on as much as this one, but.
Well, you know.
So I think you nailed it right out of the gate. Like what works so well about this, and I've got some problems with it. We'll get into that too. But I think what really does make Frontiers of Pandora successful is how authentically it captures the world.
Oh, absolutely. It's the second that you step foot into it, you get that feeling again that you're like, "Oh my gosh, look at this world. It's massive and it's beautiful and also a little terrifying." But that's an issue for another day.
Yeah, yeah. I think back to like that whole post Avatar depression phenomenon. Like when the first movie came out, and all these like sad dads were feeling suicidal because they couldn't live in Pandora. And
I didn't know that. That's something new to me.
there were countless articles back in 2009 about how devastated people were that Pandora wasn't a real place. And I just think like, wow, if only we could have handed them this game, because you just get to live in that world. Like, and they hand you it's called I think it's called the Hunter's Journal or the Hunter's Guide, which is just this
Oh yeah.
encyclopedia of all of the creatures and the plant life, and with
Yeah.
details about where they are and what they do and what they're for and how they can benefit you. And you can just explore every ounce of this world, and it's not identical to the films. It's a different place narratively,
Yeah.
but the first region that you explore, the Kingler Forest, is basically just the first movie.
Yeah, it's a different continent and you can kind of piece together what's going on based on the timeline, but it's not in the same exact area, but they still have that impact from the RDA. And again, with the Hunter's Journal, it's you're just thrown right into it with welcome to Pandora. Here's your tourist journal.
Yeah,
Don't die. Have fun.
yeah.
Pick all the plants. It's like, "Oh, okay, cool. I have no idea where anything or anyone is."
And it's a Ubisoft game, and it has all of the Ubisoft open world trappings. And I think that is ultimately to its detriment. Again, I want to talk about the positives first for a little while,
Yeah.
but also like the way that Ubisoft approaches open world games does really benefit Avatar, because I think back to the way like Assassin's Creed Odyssey with its it's like museum mode, and the way that it can be used as a way to explore ancient Greece,
Right.
because they put so much time and effort into the authenticity. And this is exploring another world, and they worked so closely with Lightstorm
Yeah.
to ensure that it was not just authentic to what we've already seen, but that they are using all of the resources that have been developed for that franchise, pulling things into the game and building things into the world that weren't used in the movies or haven't been used yet,
Oh,
to ma-
yeah.
to make sure that it matches, Cameron's vision and what the films are doing. So this is like a totally canonical, connected, like authentic Avatar game, and it
Oh,
feels that way.
absolutely.
It really like it. I think it does earn that.
It definitely does, especially when like I know like there are other ways to get around aside from walking, but I keep finding myself doing all the parkour and just
Totally.
flying across like trees and stuff, and then you know, I could climb down a cliff, but why do that when I can just fall into the massive leaves that will reduce all the fall damage?
Oh, I
So
love that.
I can just run freely and have like zero regard for what's going on around me. It feels like a chase scene almost, but it's just fun, and it's such a vibrant world. And then like hearing either the different animals going on in the background and like wondering like, is this going to eat me or is this going to just ignore me?
Hmm.
And then you know you're passing by an area and you hear like the gunfire from the RDA, and you're like, do I need to intervene here? Is this cool if I pass by? Like all of that makes it incredibly immersive, and it's already like such a vibrant and colorful world to explore that having all of those little side details just fully immerses you. And I kind of forget sometimes that I'm playing a game and that I'm not like watching a movie, so that also makes it like really exciting for me.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's such a living world. The the sound design that includes the animal, the wildlife, but also the plant life, which are kind of alive in a way that Earth plants are not. And even the way that the those heliotroppers or whatever they bloop into the ground when you get close to them, like in the movies.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that so much. I ran through them like 3 or 4 times just to hear the little sound.
Yeah.
Cuz like that's such a fond memory from like you watch the movies and he goes to touch the plant and it just goes bloop and it goes into the ground. So getting to do that, I was like, look at that.
Yeah, and you pointed out like going down on the big leaves and like falling on each one, like in the movies. And I even had that moment where there's the big field of those flowers that plop into the ground, and I'm walking through it, and they all settle, and then there's just a herd of those big, strum beasts or whatever
Oh
that
yeah.
that turn and look at me just like in the movie, and I was like, okay, this is cool.
I've accidentally run into a few of them by accident when just running around and exploring, and then I get rammed across a lake because I'm like, whoa, look at this plant, look at this, oh hello, and then you just see the little enemy signal flash, and I'm like, oh sorry, so sorry.
Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of a 3-act structure, and the first act is all through this Kingler Forest, which is going to be very familiar if you've seen the movie. But then the second act, when you move into I believe it's like the Upper Highlands or
Yeah, it's the upper plains,
the
which
Upper
is
Plains,
absolutely breathtaking.
stunning. I had the best time in the Upper Plains, and I think that it has just such incredible world building and environmental storytelling. And it's something we never saw in the movies, at least not yet. And it feels like exactly what James Cameron would dream up for Avatar. It is these rolling plains, these like very vibrant multicolored plains, and this area has these incredibly strong winds that have shaped the terrain. The trees practically grow sideways. There's these massive bush thistles that have been carved out that the people take refuge in from the winds. And the tribe that lives there is nomadic, and they have this symbiotic relationship with these massive creatures that they build their camps against because they're so big that they block the wind. And it's just the way that the world makes sense and the way that it all builds on each other and connects, and you think like, well, if there were strong winds, this is how the terrain would look, and if the terrain looked like this is how the people would behave, and it really feels like a real place.
Oh, absolutely. And once again, like the attention to detail is something that I feel like James Cameron would very much appreciate, because when you're flying over the plains and there's a gust of wind, you can see like pollen from the trees
Oh
burst
yeah.
and go towards you. And if you fly into it, you can see it like move around you. And I'm like, this is such an immense level of detail that I mean, I don't know if I've seen it before, but if I have, it's very rare to see it, and especially when it's executed in such a flawless way that it fully immerses you into the world of Pandora. So
Yeah. And that area also has these like really deep canyons where rather than you imagine that like rather than on Earth how water levels will like carve a path, this was actually the winds that were so strong that they drove through the Earth. So yeah, and you can ride those like wind channels. They can like sweep you along, and they can also like block your way. They're so strong that there's like areas that are harder to get to because of it. It's so cool. It's so imaginative, and I would love to see a movie about that location.
maybe 2026. Who knows?
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the story. That's usually where I like to start, but that is so not the hook of this game that I wanted to start with like why you will enjoy it because man. I'm definitely disappointed with the direction this game took. I'm not surprised because it is a Ubisoft game, but just to lay the background here, the game starts with like a half hour of cutscenes, right?
Yeah, yeah. I the whole time I'm sitting there like, okay, I get to play, right? And you take like 4 steps. It's like, here's another 3-minute cutscene.
Right.
All right, never mind.
And so what they set up is pretty compelling and is a really good foundation for a complex character driven story. It is about a group of Navi children who are raised in captivity. They're raised essentially to be human. They take human classes from the RDA, and they are part of a program that is meant to bridge the gap and be a diplomatic arm of the RDA to help, to help them work with the Navi and get their needs met. So right off the bat, there's hostility between these kids who remember, at least the older ones, remember that they used to live on Pandora, with their tribe, and they know that they have been kidnapped. And your character and your character's sister are a bit younger, but they're right off the bat. There's a plan to escape. Which goes afoul, and the leader of this program, Mercer, shoots your sister right in front of you.
Oh, yeah.
And you think that's a pretty strong inciting incident, right? Like, yeah. But, and so the rest of this, and this is all just the opening scene. So the rest of this is that
like 10 minutes of the 30-minute opening.
Yeah. So then, Jake and the Amatakaya in the first movie are going to war with the RDA, which has fallout for your characters and this program, and they ultimately decide they're going to end the program and kill all these kids because you can't work with the savages, right?
Yeah, you can't trust them. They just turned on us. We just had someone that an adult that we trained to do this, and they turned against us. We can't trust the children, kind of deal.
Yeah, we're terminating the program and we're going to kill all the kids. And your teacher, who is a human with an avatar, her name's Alma, fights back, rescues all the kids, and puts them into cryo until the time period of Way of Water, which is a little convenient, but
just a little. I think it's like right before the events of Way of Water, just to give a little extra leeway between things.
Yeah.
But it is like right up towards where that's happening, where the RDA has decided we're gonna stay on Pandora and look for other ways to make sure that we don't waste all of our money on this exploration.
Yeah. And across the Western frontier, they have a lot of different how can we destroy the planet best efforts going on.
That's one way to put it.
So you get broken out of cryo by a resistance group many years later, and then you work with that group to thwart the RDA across the Western Plains. And all of that setup, I think, is really good. It's not very well done because it's all in first person. Your character is silent because you go through the character creator at the end of this sequence, which I think is a huge
Yeah.
mistake. I think one of my biggest problems with this game narratively is that you are a custom character. And so you don't even have a name. They just call you Blue. Right? Like the bad guys call you Blue and your friends call you nothing. They don't even refer to you by your name because you don't have one. Like so the whole beat of like watching your sister get killed in cold blood by your surrogate father who kidnapped you as a child, like all of that is really heavy stuff and none of it really matters or feel like there's another kid in your group who was best friends with your sister and he is the one that carries the weight of her death, not you. Not like the fact that your own sister was killed in front of you doesn't really matter because you're not really a character in this story.
Yeah, it feels more like you're dropped into it and you have a connection to it, but it's not like a personal. It's not well implemented and executed. Like it's there and it would be good, but having that character customization towards the end definitely draws back from the actual plot cuz I mean, I get not wanting to put character customization directly at the forefront of the game. However, that's something that we can kind of expect to happen when there's a custom character, that it's like, hey, design what you look like, then we'll talk about the plot later. This tries to throw the plot at you sooner to bring you in, but then the character customization takes away from that in a sense because you already know what's happening. You just want to continue. You don't necessarily want to stop and take another 30 minutes just to figure out which of the 6 hairstyles you want to have. So,
and I think that you can still do the hair and the face and even the gender without having such a blank slate character. I mean, Valhalla, lets you play 2 different versions of the same character, but they're still like a person with their own perspective, and you are just sort of a nameless hero.
yeah.
I think it's a bit of a detriment. I think it's a huge detriment to the story. My other big problem, so the plot from there is just meeting the tribes who are distrusting of you, but not because like you were raised by the RDA and could be dangerous, but just because you're an outsider, like just because they don't know you. So that whole like origin doesn't play a huge factor into it. You do occasionally revisit your friends who the other kids you were raised with, you just immediately leave them behind at the first resistance base you come to, and then occasionally go back and chat with them to move the plot forward.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, are they really your friends? You just kind of go off in your own direction. I mean,
that's really my problem, is that like you play this whole game alone. Like you face down the RDA by yourself and you go back to the tribes, for advice and for information, mostly just for information. But you do this whole thing by yourself, and that's just not Avatar. Like there's something really essential about this property, about this story that's missing when you cannot fight alongside the people. And it all builds to this big climax where all the tribes come together. But all of the big final battle happens off screen while you're alone crawling through vents, sabotaging RDA stuff, which is all you do throughout the whole game. Is like kind of familiar systems and gameplay loops and makes it its own. And I think the physicality of being Na'vi comes through really well here. Your stature, your strength, your speed, most importantly, like you kind of feel like you're the Predator.
Yeah, I kind of forgot how tall the Na'vi were until I walked up to a human and I used the melee attack and just watched them ragdoll across a field.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's right. I'm like 9.5 feet tall.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
The locomotion stuff is really well implemented. You can really just kind of parkour around and mantle onto stuff and grab stuff freely. It's very smooth when you're running and jumping and climbing. You can pretty much walk up to the side of a mountain and just like mash jump and scale right up it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And
I don't do that all the time at all. Why would I find the path that they want me to take when I can scale the side of a mountain instead?
You also have this like Apex Legends slide, and the jump is like a charged jump, so you can sort of like combine this slide into a charged jump, leap, and then go back into a slide and get around really fast. And also when you're in combat, slide around corners, firing your bow while you're sliding, and juke. And it does, like, it feels very frenetic, and you do feel very powerful, which I thought that stuff was pretty well done.
Absolutely. I'm not a big fan of the combat, but I'm never a big fan of the combat.
Yeah.
But I also really appreciate the level of detail where when you're fighting enemies, or like taking down the RDA is the best time to use firearms, because that's the most effective way half the time, especially in open combat. But then if you want to go hunting or something, you need to use the bows or you ruin all of the materials and you get nothing out of it.
Right.
So that, like, I feel like it balances the different types of weapons, so that one weapon isn't really better than another. There's just different uses that you have to figure out, so that you can make the most of all of them together.
Yeah, and I think that's another way that it takes, the typical Ubisoft trappings and kind of makes it its own. When it comes to gathering and hunting, it has this quality over quantity quality to it. In that, you don't want to collect 100 of this. You don't want to walk around just taking everything. It doesn't benefit you, and it doesn't fit the theme of Avatar either. What you want is to take exactly what you need. You want the highest quality materials, and you don't need much. You need 2 things to craft anything, but they have to be a very specific material of a very specific quality. So you when it comes to gathering and hunting, it's very intentional. And when you kill something, you have to hit the weak spot, and you have to kill it quickly because it has to be a respectful kill. And when you gather something, you have to gather it very delicately, and like move the stick just to the right angle and pull it very slowly so you don't damage it. And all of that works so well for Avatar. That's exactly how it should be.
Oh, absolutely. Especially when certain items need to be collected in specific weather conditions. Like,
yeah,
if you need to collect it in the rain and it's a bright sunny day, you have to come back later. Like, you can pass the time, but you still have to walk back to that spot later, and hope that it's still there, and that there's not like any of the viper wolves or some of the little beetle things, which are absolutely dreadful. I can't stand them. But like you have to like plan around it, and if you end up gathering too much, like, you can't carry anymore. You have to go either use it to cook food or make gear, or you can give it to other clans to build favor. But I mean,
it's
to do something
mostly
with
useless. Yeah, if you over collect, you're wasting your time.
Yeah,
and so it incentivizes you to just take what you need, and I think that's really smart. What did you think about the flying?
Admittedly, I don't like flying in video games, but I loved flying on the back of the Ikran. It felt right, and I loved getting to do, like, unlocking the skills to do, like, barrel rolls in the sky. I don't like the combat on it, and that might just be me.
No,
because, like, no, I'm used to Skyrim with the perks where it'll slow down so I can actually aim properly.
Yeah.
But without that, I'm like, all right, well, I can't really hit the things that are moving unless I get closer. But if I get closer, then they're hitting me, and that kind of defeats the purpose of me being on the back of something to fire arrows or fire the guns and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it's fun, but it quickly lost its appeal to me, and I just decided, we're just gonna go on the ground and do this the stealthy way again.
Yeah, so there's some cool stuff you can do, like if you stun the enemy with like a shock arrow or something, then you can use your Ikran to like grab it and toss it.
That
And
is fun.
yeah, and you can like barrel roll and stuff. But it is a bit awkward to fight in the air. It's very cool to get a perspective of the world from up high, and you know you can fly up to the floating mountains and
Oh
stuff
yeah.
too. Yeah, so I like the way it's implemented, but I agree it definitely could be better.
Yeah, I think just like a slowdown feature for when you're attacking with like the ranged weapons would be um a little better, because I know like if you're firing a gun, it's a little easier to like you're not doing one shot at a time. You're doing multiple, so it's easier to hit your target. But I do enjoy the fact that one of the perks with the Ikran is that you can fly low towards the water and it will fish for you and feed itself. And I thought
Yeah,
that was
I
a
like
really
that.
cool like a cool little detail of like this is a living thing. This is what it does in the world. You need to take care of it. That being said, I forget to eat all the time in the game, so the little bar is always flashing at me, and my character is always like, "Hey, I really need to eat." I'm like, "No, you don't. We're good. We're gonna keep going."
Yeah. I think the last thing I wanted to touch on, and then I'll ask you, but you know, so it has a loot system, which is increasingly becoming a red flag for people. And I don't disagree. I don't think every game I don't needs a loot system. I don't think most games need a loot system, and yet it seems like they all have it now. But what I will say here is that I found that in terms of progression, you can play the game you want and do the things you want to do, and it will lead to progression. It does a good job of giving you different paths forward so that if you want to hunt and gather and craft upgrades, you can do that. If you want to clear out bases and collect resources and trade them for gear, you can do that. If you want to explore and find things hidden in the world, you can do that. And I got to the end of the game almost at the recommended level. I think I was just one under, and I never felt like I had to go out of my way to farm materials or to farm bases. Like I just sort of did the stuff I wanted to do, and it rewarded me in a way that kept me moving forward. And I think that's the way it should be done.
Oh, absolutely. I definitely agree that it's you can do what you want to do and then finish the game feeling like it was complete, but you know, a friend of yours could play it a completely different way and also feel like it's a complete game. Because I know for me, like I like taking out all the RDA bases. I like sabotaging them. I like trying to heal the planet because that's just been a theme this year with games for me. Is
Mm,
like we're gonna heal the planet. So I enjoy doing that, and I also just, admittedly, a motivation for me is to find more like customization features since you can customize at any time,
yeah.
whenever for free. It's wonderful. I'm desperately looking for specific items to have, so that definitely drives like what I'm doing. Like I just forsake the main quest and go, all right, who needs my help? Where can I be of service? Let's go. Let's just fully immerse into the culture. And I mean, it feels complete to me as I'm trying to slowly progress through everything, but it's definitely what you make of it is how well you'll enjoy it. So if you don't like going and hunting and gathering, then just don't do it. Go do something else that you actually enjoy and just come back when you have to.
Yeah, it definitely is a game that allows for that. The other thing I must forgot to mention that I really love is after you complete a base, when you come back later, it has been taken over by nature.
Yes, that is, oh, it's so
I
brilliant. I love
love
seeing
that.
all of it, especially when like you do get to loot a couple things afterwards, which I agree. The looting system is I'd rather not have it. Um but just coming back and seeing like, ah, yes, nature has run its course. All of the wildlife is just walking through here. The pollution is gone. Everything's back to life. It's so pretty and beautiful and also encouraging to like make you keep doing it to see like what one area might look like as compared to another.
Hmm.
Or if you're like me searching for all the skills, you kind of have to clear out the pollution because you can't activate or interact with any of the wildlife when it's polluted
Yeah.
because it's essentially dead. So
Yeah. It's a cool game. I think my summation is that it's held back by the way Ubisoft makes games as much as it's elevated by the way Ubisoft makes games.
yeah, yeah, that tracks. I also think one of the things I realized playing it is that as a big Avatar fan, like this is a fantastic game for me. But as I played, I realized that people who aren't familiar with Avatar are going to get a little lost in the beginning and trying to keep track of like who the RDA is, what are these different clans, what are all these creatures. So it can be definitely overwhelming if you're not familiar with Avatar. But that being said, I feel that most people who are picking this game up know exactly what they're getting into, um, because it's Avatar and that's the main appeal, I feel.
Yeah, it definitely takes for granted that you know this world, but so do Star Wars games, and it made so many billions that most people have seen it.
Yeah.
So it sort of starts from a point of like who Jake is, and the movies, the story of the movies ties in at the beginning, but then it really just goes off in its own direction.
Yeah. It relies on like a basic understanding of what the world is like or what the baseline struggle is.
Right.
Um and then after that it's like, all right, it's up to you now. Make your own story, enjoy, maybe help stop the RDA, but if you just want to go and hunt and gather for a few hours, that's fine.
Yeah, if you just want to play it like a nature documentary, you can do that too. And you could do that forever because it's a big world. Cool. My score was a 4 out of 5. My full review is linked down in the description. Zoe, is there anything else you want to mention about it?
No, I agree. I think it's a very good game. I feel like it could be a little better with a few tweaks here and there, but otherwise it's a very good game, and I would highly recommend it.
Cool. That's it for this one. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell, and visit us at thegamer.com. That's The Gamer, no spaces.